So ultimately, we ended up with this 9.5-minute track, and of course, I worked on all the other stuff and kept coming back to it, and it was kind of like what am I gonna do with this? Like going back and trying to cut a solo. I'm like, I'm not a guy that can solo for 4 minutes and still have anything interesting. And then it kind of occurred to me like, well, what if I get, see if I can send this to some other players to get them to solo on it, and then I'll kind of divvy it up.
That's Slim Gambill. I'm Jamie Green, and this is Trading Fours. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Trading Fours. I'm your host, Jamie Green, and today we've got the great guitarist Slim Gambill in the house. You probably know him as the guitarist for the multi-platinum group, Lady A. But that's just one component of Slim's life. He does a lot of other cool stuff. In fact, he has 2 albums out recently. One last year, Fake Jazz and Theme Songs. And this year, his new album, LCD. They're both great. And we're going to talk about that, all those things, and also a really cool, fun side project. But before we get started, I would really dig it if you could subscribe to this podcast wherever you find it, on Apple or Spotify or YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. That's great. And also, if you're digging what I'm doing, enjoying it, please give me a review. It helps to drive traffic. So much fun to talk to Slim. Had a lot of things in common. Really enjoyed this one. So let's get started. Here's my conversation with Slim Gambill. Well, let's get started first, man. Thanks for coming on Trading Fours and being on the podcast. Really appreciate the time.
Man. Thanks for having me. Absolutely.
And I first think it's, I always read everybody's bio and stuff, and you and I have one very small thing in common, but we were both born in Nebraska, so there you go.
Really? Where were you born?
Lincoln.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. It's rare to meet people from Nebraska that aren't still in Nebraska.
Yeah. Well, we have a kind of a joke from my classmates, are like the people who left. It's a very different line, and where they've gone as opposed to the people who've stayed. But yeah, it's my, it's 3. I'm in Kansas City, so Lincoln's only 3 hours away. But
okay, but yeah, Kansas City is a very different place, than it used to be, but also a very different place than Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yep.
Are you still a Huskers fan?
Sadly, yes. I'm masochistic. I keep watching.
I'm still holding on to the Tom Osborne era. Like I still
have to
reference it whenever, Nebraska. It's like, man, that was a dynasty like very few that have ever existed. It was just 25 years ago.
Yeah. It's sad. You just have to, my older son, he's a freshman at Nebraska. He just started. And so to him, he's like, what are you talking about? The team was good, because he's never seen it.
It's funny. It's funny how it ebbs and flows like that. But I mean, gosh, most powerhouse teams, like they have their ups and downs.
Yep. Well, anyway, so that's kind of cool. But when I was asked about you and wanted to talk about, well, first of all, it's really cool that you are keeping busy and trying to help out musicians with Covid19 Relief. I know Music Cares, and this is the tune that it's kind of a mashup, and I'm going to let you describe it a lot better than I am, between Wes Montgomery's 4 on 6 and Stevie Wonder's I Wish.
Yeah.
Which I really did. I mean, you can't be a guitar player and not love Wes Montgomery. It's just impossible.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not any of us can actually like play even remotely the stuff that he was doing, you still have to appreciate it and respect it.
Absolutely. And how much he did in such a short amount of time, and how much he wrote. It's just amazing.
Yeah, no doubt.
And, and early Stevie Wonder, that's all phenomenal too. So let's talk about this track, man. It's up on YouTube, and I'll put in the show notes the link to it and what you're doing. But I mean, you've got a killer cast of people on here. So why don't you walk us through your thought process and how you got everybody on board and how it worked out?
Well, it's something I've been doing in my live shows for my jazz project. Like I kind of came up with that arrangement. For some reason, I got bit by the standards bug a little bit for the first time in 20 years. and I just kind of started exploring because of my jazz project. I'm like, I should probably work some, covers in, for lack of a better word. And I was never really a real book guy. I was never very diligent about learning tunes like you're supposed to. Like in jazz land, you're supposed to learn 1,000 tunes. I was just never really, I always liked to write my own stuff and come up with my own stuff. But I kind of realized like I should find some stuff to do, but I still wanted to do it my own way. So I started relearning 4-on-6, which is a very intimidating tune because the changes are just blazing.
Yeah.
And I started actually looking into, the stuff that Wes was doing on it. And it was very, very pattern oriented because that's about all you can do over those changes. But then I was like, well, what if I just make the changes go by half as fast? So I kind of came up with this halftime, like groovy version of it where the changes aren't going by as fast, and like put the accents in different spots, changed the melody up so that it would, be suitable to that. And then it just kind of, for some reason, dawned on me that like, oh, this would be cool with like the bass line from I Wish over this groove. Like if it started there and then went into the West changes. So that became like a staple of my live performances. And then when I went to cut my current record that just came out, it was the last thing we did in the studio with some buddies in LA. Like it was just the last deal. It was kind of like, okay, let's just throw this down just so that I'll have it. And we basically went on for like 9.5 minutes. Like I'm just like wanking. I said all I had to say in about the first 2 choruses, but I just kind of kept on going for some reason. And then the piano player, Kenneth Crouch, soloed for a long time. So ultimately we ended up with this 9.5 minute track. And of course I worked on all the other stuff and kept coming back to it. And it was kind of like, what am I going to do with this? Like going back and trying to cut a solo. I'm like, I'm not a guy that can solo for 4 minutes and still have anything interesting. And then it kind of occurred to me like, well, what if I get, see if I can send this to some other players to get them to solo on it. And then I'll kind of divvy it up. And the first one I hit up, I had just opened for Mark Lettieri at City Winery. I'd never met him, but I met him that night. Really nice guy. And obviously absurd guitar player, like different level of guitar player. So I hit him up just out of left field, still don't really know him, but I said, hey man, like if I send you this, like, would you, just throw down a few solo choruses for me? Cause I just want to make it kind of a cool little all-star thing.
Right.
And he said yes. And he was the first one to say yes. And I also hit up my old professor, Pat Kelly, and Justin Derrico from Pink's band with kind of the same request. At this point, I had nothing in particular in mind other than let me get a few people that I know a little bit to solo on it, and then I'll organize it later, because that's kind of what I'm an editor at heart. Like I put the pieces together. But so they all did it, and then I kind of, those guys saying yes kind of gave me a little bit of support to reach out to some other people that I maybe didn't know as well, saying like, oh, Mark Lettieri did it, and Justin Derrico did it, and Pat Kelly did it. You're like, yeah, they're on it. Do you want to be on it?
Right.
And then, so this is like in March. And so right about the time that everything locked down and everything was just, everybody was home, tours were canceled. And it kind of dawned on me. I'm like, wow, every musician on earth is sitting at home in their home studios right now. So like, if I was ever to start cold calling people I'd never met, this would be the time, because I know they're home.
Yep. That's what I've done with this podcast.
Well, it's funny, like to taking advantage of that. It's like, okay, well, let's make lemonade out of this.
Yeah.
And then I also, right about then too, it kind of hit me like, man, if I could make this killer all-star thing, it could be a really good thing to just attach to a charity in order to raise some money. And of course, I'd done a lot of Music Cares events. I was not directly involved with them, but through Lady A, I had done a lot of Music Cares stuff. So I was, of course, familiar with them and their mission, and they had a specific fund set up for musicians affected by COVID-19, which, because every musician basically lost their jobs, there were no more live performances, and really, for all practical purposes, still aren't.
Right.
So it was geared towards that, and they've helped a lot of friends of mine, and so yeah, I reached out to them. I got a contact there, and they were into it. And so I just kind of kept grinding away and just started finding contact points for people I'd never met, like heroes of mine.
Right.
And it was a lot of like asking people like, hey, my buddy at Sewer Guitars, I was kind of like, man, Scott Henderson's one of your guys. Can you put me in touch? So put me in touch. And so it was this really strange couple months of me like finding myself on the phone with Mike Stern and getting voicemails from Eric Johnson. And Stanley Jordan was the last one. I get a random phone message. I had hit him up 6 weeks prior. Right. The thing was almost done. And I get a voicemail from Stanley Jordan. He's like, I don't know if you're done with it or not, but yeah, I'd love to do it. I'm like,
yeah, you're going to make.
Well, you're Stanley. I literally went back to the editing room and I edited in another solo chorus because I'm like, yes, there's room for you, Stanley Jordan. Yeah, it was this crazy, like it took a long time. It was definitely, herding cats on some level, like as one would expect. But and then it was done as of like the end of July, and then it took another right at 3 months to get the publishers of the songwriters to be okay with releasing it. So that was a fun journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, finally got it done and got it out there, and there you have it. That's the quick and dirty.
No, it's great, man. I mean, it's a ton of fun. I mean, I tell, and like I said, I'll put it up in the show notes so people can actually click on the YouTube link, because part of the fun is just seeing all the people that are playing on this.
Yeah. Well, that was the fun part too, is like, getting people like, hey, yeah, take just an iPhone video of you. Cause I mean, everyone was doing those quarantine videos. It wasn't like a new idea at that point, but yeah, getting them all to do video as well was like just wild.
Yeah. Whoever all the video editors are in 2020, they need to get patted on the back, because they're busy and trying like all those tracks and all those people and syncing all that up perfectly and making that look like, that's not easy.
There was a lot of math involved in the process of like very like copious notes of like, it's this point in so-and-so's video aligns with this point on the track. And so, but it was honestly, it was a friend of a friend named Ray Alley who did the editing. And he's a student at Belmont. Like he's actually a musician himself and a composer, and he just does video like for kicks. Right. I didn't know this till after it was basically done. I'm like, this is just a hobby. But yeah, so he did a killer job.
No, he did a great job. No, it's such a cool thing that people can do that. I'm assuming video editors too, for the most part, are sitting at home, right, Slim? Because they're in the same boat. You can't do reality shows right now for the most part.
Well, yeah, but yeah, video editors sit at home all the time though. They're 16 hours a day, like, just in Final Cut or whatever. Is it Final? Whatever the kids are using.
Right. So where are you in Nashville, right? That's where you're located?
Just outside. I'm in the suburbs outside of Nashville. Yeah, Mount Juliet is what it's called.
Very cool. How long have you been there?
Well, we just moved to Mount Juliet last October, but we've been in the area. I was in a different suburb right before this called Hermitage, and I've been in Nashville since 2007.
Okay, it's such a great town, music town. I mean,
it's awesome. I mean, it's changed a lot.
Yeah. Every time I go back there, it's like there's more skyscrapers and a lot of cranes, and I mean, it's changed a lot. So I totally get that. It's kind of like Austin was, same kind of thing. Austin went from kind of a college town to a big tech mecca too.
Yeah, I mean, Austin has become a really interesting place. It's still like it's like this weird combination of hippy dippy and finance tech types. Nashville is still like pretty music oriented, but there's been such an influx of people from New York and Chicago and LA and San Francisco and San Diego and like all these, way more expensive places that has just driven the prices up of everything. And it's like when I got here, there were a couple of like high-rise apartment buildings, and they couldn't give them away because you didn't move to Nashville to live downtown. Like you get a cool house in East Nashville or somewhere, like it's Nashville, it's a homey place. So those places were going for peanuts, and no one wanted to rent them, nothing. And now it's like people come here for that. They've developed downtown to the point where it's an actual downtown thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, I know you've got a new CD. I'm old, Slim. Sorry.
I pressed a few CDs.
Album out. I'll get a LCD, and I've been listening to. I listen to everybody when I do these podcasts. I on my jog, So,
Oh, nice.
so it's just a great way to get away for 30 to 40 minutes and not be interrupted and actually get to listen, kind of
Right.
meditative almost.
Yeah.
And I really dig it. It's really cool, man. Your talent's fabulous.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I had a lot of time to obsess over it because like most of the overdubs happened during the lockdown, and it was kind of it kind of gave me something to do to sort of like stay musical and keep working. And so yeah, I was really able to micromanage the heck out of it. And get the tones just right. I also like right at the beginning of all this, like I got one of the Universal Audio aux boxes, this Guitar Geek stuff now.
Yeah.
But that like is, I keep saying like beyond my wife and children, the aux box is probably the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And, I mean, it just made it so easy because I have like this arsenal of vintage amps, but I don't really have a great way to mic them up.
Right.
You know, I have APIs, I have good microphones, I have all that, but it's just I'm not good at that. So so the aux box made it where I really got to play around with tones and just get everything dialed in. So thanks. I'm glad you dig it.
No, I love it, and I think it's cool too. And one of the things I read where you talked about you love to play along with TV, and that's kind of why you called it LCD and this playing along with themes and stuff. So I noodle all the time until my wife tells me to put the guitar down.
Yeah.
So talk about that. That's kind of a cool idea that then incorporating it into your album.
Yeah, it's well, my first album was called Fake Jazz and Theme Songs, and now this is, like you said, LCD. And LCD was, I mean, the track LCD is actually sort of my spin on like the the 90s. Speaking of the 90s, like the theme from Baywatch or 90210 or like that kind of thing, kind of like the overly processed like rock guitar thing.
Oh yeah.
And we took it to Mindy Abair, the great saxophone player, played a really killer like extended sax solo on it. So we just really went there, and I just thought about the TVs that we all grew up with, the giant LCD TVs, the liquid crystal display, like the monstrous huge TV sets. That's what we were all watching those shows on. So just thought it was fitting, and a lot of this stuff kind of is definitely inspired by TV music and film music and stuff like that. It's kind of just where I come from, I guess, as a writer. So that's kind of where that came out of, is just because probably 95% of my guitar practice in my life has been like watching TV. And it wasn't even necessarily like playing along with the stuff. It was more like it was always kind of there.
Right.
How you kind of, when you listen to things even passively, like they just kind of sink in, and that's what ends up coming out.
Yeah. Well, that was such a big part of our childhood. Theme songs were, gosh, the opening credits for TV shows back when people had attention spans were like a minute long. Like,
I know the 80s were the golden age of that. I mean, I always think about, like, you remember the Fall Guy?
Oh yeah.
Like the theme from Fall Guy, where it's like this great verse and chorus, and then another verse and another chorus, where like they literally just played an entire song for the intro.
Well, Lee Majors sang it. He wanted it out, right?
I know. It's so great. And like, I mean, like the Greatest American Hero and the Chips. So many just cop show themes. And I mean, yeah. So the 80s, well, really everything up until recently, like just
now you got the button on your Netflix. You just skip intro. You don't even get to hear the song, right?
Yeah.
Nobody can wait.
People have the ability to do that, and it is kind of unfortunate because I do miss great theme songs.
No, it's such a part of your, talk about nostalgia when you hear the song. We were talking about great bass lines. I have a friend who's a bass player, and so first, of course, we were talking about Barney Miller.
The
bass line, Night Court, and the Seinfeld one, that was just a keyboard trying to sound like a bass.
Cues in between,
but anyway,
Barney Miller though, that's like, that's the one for bass.
Absolutely. So let's I think most people obviously are going to know you from Lady A and that works. So what was 2020 going to be like? What was your guys' plan? What were you going to do this year before
it was going to be a full summer tour, like sheds, amphitheaters, which is our typically, like, we'll have one summer that's a lot of sheds, and then another one that'll be, the next summer will be fairs and festivals and stuff like that. this of course proved to be neither. We were supposed to start at the end of May, and then, COVID happened. It got pushed back to the beginning of July, and then much like this is the story of a lot of tours. It's, oh, we'll just push it back, and everything got rescheduled, and then everyone got to a month and a half out from July, and everyone's going, wow, don't know if this is happening, and so it got postponed indefinitely.
Yeah.
And then that was that. It was kind of like, well, we can't play shows. Everyone's on lockdown, so see you guys next year.
Yeah.
And we've done a handful of like corporate live stream kind of stuff and other live stream things, a little bit of TV, but it's all been kind of, some of it's been quarantine style, where we literally like we're doing videos of ourselves and recording ourselves, and then it all got put together and then put up on The Voice or something like that. And then some of it has been go into a big room, masks mandatory, temperature checks. In some cases, like everyone in the building had to have a rapid COVID test. So like the bubble thing, like we did the iHeart Festival, and that was one of the COVID bubbles. And so that's been the latest development on how this stuff is working. But it was supposed to be a year just like any other. We were going to go play, 50, 60 shows, and then wind down in time for Thanksgiving, and then pick it up again next year. Now it's, I think every tour, like every big tour, is planning on going on tour next summer.
Yeah.
With the understanding that, well, maybe we won't, but I hope so. If touring doesn't happen next summer, the music industry is going to be in pretty hot water.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's, and I'm, it's a hobby, so it doesn't really affect me except for spending cash, but I have some really good friends. It's their sole source of income. And, music's a tough business regardless in good times for most musicians. And now it's horrible. And, we've lost, I'm sure it's the same in Nashville. I'm sure it's the same in every city in this country. Have lost a lot of live music venues that just closed their doors, and they're never opening them again.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And the ones that have survived are getting by, they're basically keeping the lights on. I've played a couple of my own shows at venues I've done before, but the capacity gets so limited that it's literally just to stave off getting shut down. But no one's making any money. No one's getting ahead. They're still falling further behind, but it's just like everyone's just in survival mode.
Totally.
But like you said, a lot of venues, they weren't even able to get into survival mode. They just kind of went away.
No, and it's sad because it's such a huge part of not just musicians' life. There's the fans' life. I think live music is. I mean, we fight about so much in this country, whether it's politics or religion or whatever, but music seems to be one of the few things that we can get together in a room and just focus on that, not have to have those arguments. And it's a big hole in people's lives.
Yeah, and not having that available to live music fans it's probably done a number just on people's mental health beyond obviously lockdown, quarantine, everything we all experienced. Like there's already, in my opinion, going to be a bit more of a mental health crisis as people kind of like try to return to normal or don't return to normal. But then not having that outlet in addition, because people are stressed out. Like a lot of people are stressed out anyway. And that's why they'll go to some festival over the summer that they like save their money all year and they look forward to all year. Like that's when they finally get to blow it out and be like, okay, reset. Now I can get back to whatever was stressing me out. But they didn't even have that this summer. So it's like, man, there's a lot of things that are weighing on people, and that is not helping.
No. So
yeah, I'm hoping that a way is found between all the vaccines that are happening, and I've heard murmurs of different concert promoters finding ways to just get more testing available on site just to make people more comfortable and not have to do 20% capacity on all these venues, do 60% capacity and everyone is tested or something. Like I'm not in on the nuts and bolts of any of that stuff, but I know that the industry is working to try to make it happen because like you said, people need it.
Yeah. It's a huge hole. Real quick before we go, I'm always curious about. So I saw that you went to USC for jazz studies, correct?
My degree is in recording arts.
Okay.
I was in the studio jazz guitar program for 2 years towards the middle, but I changed majors like 6 times. I was there for 5.5 years.
So who were like the big professors and teachers back then?
At USC, we had Joe DiOrio, Pat Kelly, Frank Patenza, Richard Smith. My first instructor was named Tom Osuna. I think Steve Travato.
Yeah.
There, and then there were a handful of TAs who are now full professors there. Andy Abad, who I mean he toured with a bunch of people over the course of his touring career. Now he's there. Nick Stubis, he's one of the main professors there now. He was a graduate student when I was there. Who else? There are a handful of other people that have gone on to do well or are still there, like now being full professors. But yeah, it was a good faculty. I honestly was my own worst enemy, like in the studio jazz guitar program, because I was just always so stubborn of what I said, I didn't want to learn standards. Right. I didn't want to do what I was told, because I was like, I'm not really into that. Which now looking back on it, it's just like, man, now that I'm really digging more into that stuff, it's like, man, I had full access to some of the greatest players and instructors on earth. And I would walk into my lesson every week with Pat Kelly.
Right.
Completely unprepared. He basically showed me the same thing every week, because I just in between it just be like, and it's ridiculous to me now. Like, boy, really did not take advantage of that scenario. I just spent a lot of money on it.
Yeah. Well, LA has such a huge history as a jazz town. I don't, you and I know that, the West Coast sound and, Stan Kenton and all that stuff. But I don't think that, you think all those great players are just there because of TV and movie work too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of just the golden age of LA session guys come from a jazz background. The Lee Ritenours and the Larry Carltons of the world, the guys that were playing on all those just insane records in the 70s and 80s. Like, yeah. They're all jazz and fusion dudes that, the history runs really deep out there. And don't think of it that way, but there was a lot going on.
Yeah, one of my happiest just serendipity days when I was in New York City. I always wanted to go to the Blue Note, and it just never worked out before. And I got to go to the Blue Note, and it was Lee Ritenour.
Nice.
And his son playing drums, Wesley, was great. And then Hadrian Farrard was the bassist, and Hadrian actually has been on my podcast too. And so much fun. It was me and my buddy and about 200 Japanese tourists.
Yeah, that's about how that, like, I was at the Blue Note once in about 1999 or 2000, and it was to see Tito Puente play. And it was obviously awesome to see Tito, but then did you stick around for the after hours jam?
Yeah.
The thing that starts at like 2 a.m.
Yeah. I was very tired.
Man, it's crazy though. Like the New York jazz crowd is intense.
It's so much fun. That's one of those great things. That's what we were talking earlier. You can't replicate that. It's a stopgap. I totally get it. People need to do stuff, but watching it on a screen, I don't care how big it is. It's not the same as being there. It just doesn't.
No, and that's why I've always been confident as a guy who is primarily a touring musician. Like, man, the internet has really screwed up a lot in the music industry, but like, it's not going to be able to ruin touring. People will still want that experience. And then along comes COVID to just destroy the touring industry for the entire year. It's like, geez, like I didn't think anything could shut down the touring industry.
Yeah.
But man, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So have you been to Kansas City often playing? And
oh yeah. I've been to KC probably, I don't know, a dozen times. We've played at the Sprint Center.
Oh yeah.
Right there in the Power and Light District.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we've been there a handful of times, and then there's some amphitheater that's like west of town.
Sandstone is what it used to be called, but it keeps changing name. Yeah. Yeah.
So that place, which I don't know if they've refurbished it like but yeah, it's been there for a while. From what
Long
I can
time.
tell. Yeah.
I saw Van Halen there with Alice in Chains in what, 91. So yeah, it's been there long.
Yeah. So it's but I've heard though. Is there a new
There's
amphitheater being built?
Yeah, there's Starlight is here, which is actually next to the zoo, and there's some other stuff too. But yeah, the Coffin Center, which is fabulous. If you ever get the chance to play there, that's a gorgeous building.
The Kaufman Center.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a performing arts center.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Cool.
It's like the coolest building in town, and the acoustics are just unbelievable. So I saw Bella Fleck played with Chick Corea there.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, made me want to go home and never try to play an instrument ever again.
I saw Bella Fleck at the Wiltern in LA in, I don't know, 2000 something, early 2000s. And like, funny story, because I was like one of the only people standing up watching the show, because at the time I was just way into the jam band thing, and I was just like, oh my God, and I feel a tap on my shoulder, and I turn around and it's Michael McKean.
Wow.
The singer of Spinal Tap, and from all those Christopher Guest movies, asking me to sit down because he can't see. I'm like, oh yeah, sorry there, David St. Hubbins. I didn't mean
That's
to
hilarious.
you. Yeah, but hell of a show though, man. Future Man, and it was Victor Wooten and Jeff Coffin. Like it was the glory days of Bella Fleck. But Bella Fleck with Chick Corea, man, that would be whew.
Yeah, and it totally works. You wouldn't think banjo piano, but it worked. It was great.
And it's funny about instruments like like banjo. It generally that doesn't work, but when it's in the hands of Bella Fleck, and really probably only him, he can make anything. It's like seeing Chris Thile playing mandolin, and seeing him do Bach partitas that are meant for violin on mandolin, and then you see him play with Brad Meldau, and they're doing like just deep jazz, and he's on the mandolin. Like there's only like one dude that can do that, and it's him. But Bella is that guy on banjo.
Absolutely. Well, I want to be cognizant of your time. So real quick before we go, what's the best way for people to follow you? Is it your website? Is it Instagram? Is it Twitter? What do you like? What do you update the most?
I'm not really great with any of it, but I guess if I had to choose one, I would say definitely going to my website, slimgambill.com, GAMBILL, slimgambill.com. And then the benefit website is 24on6.com, numbers 24on6.com. And that's got the 24on6 video. It also links to my website, but it has the video. It has a way to donate to Music Cares. It has a way to buy the track, which also goes to Music Cares. So that's a convenient portal as well. And then Instagram is at Slim Gambill. Facebook is Slim Gambill. YouTube, Slim Gambill.
Aren't you glad your name isn't James Green? You couldn't do any of that.
Right. Well, the problem with my name is the spelling.
Yeah.
But but yeah. So I'm trying to get better with social media. Every time I have like a surge of being good at it, then I just check out because, frankly, I just don't like it. I think on some level you have to enjoy that to really go into it, but and I know I need to like it. I need to learn how to like it because it's just necessary.
You need an intern to do it for you.
I need a freaking intern. Yeah.
And say, what great experience I've been giving this intern, right? It's unpaid experience, but it's fabulous experience. And you can, that's what you need.
Well, the younger generation, it's just a part of their life. Everything that happens, they post about it.
Yeah.
And for me, I just have better things to do than post about it.
Yeah.
And, and the same could be said for anybody that posts all the time. I mean, there are people of my age bracket that are incredibly good. I mean, Mark Lettieri. I mean, that guy that's the first time I'd heard of him. His videos on Instagram and YouTube have you seen it?
No, I'm gonna have to look it up now.
Man, I mean, his videos, like every day he'll have a couple things on Instagram that are just like a minute of him just jamming over a track. And it's just stupid. Like the guy is a ridiculous guitar player.
Yeah. I had Oz Noy on, and Oz does a bunch of stuff like that on Instagram too.
He's good with I've seen Oz quite on some really great YouTube videos.
Yeah, he's another Stern dude. Like he loves Stern, and they hang out apparently.
I believe that. Like I've never met Oz. I was in touch with him. He was gonna do the track, and then I guess he just it didn't turn out to be his thing. Like he was kind of like, he says, man, I'm having a hard time, because he's apparently such, I didn't know this, such like a West guy, and 4 on 6 was like one of those tunes that like just meant a lot to him. And so he's like, I'm trying to play it like this, and I'm trying to play it half speed. And he's like, I'm just not falling into it, man. I'm like, hey, no worries. But yeah, he's those New York guys, man. Him and like Nearfelder is another one of those cats. And then, but then Mike Stern, man, like
he played with Miles. He got to play with Miles Davis.
Miles and Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and I mean, and his stuff. And it's so funny because I got a voicemail from him. I still have all the voicemails I got during this project. The first voicemail he ever left me was 2 minutes long. And every subsequent one was the same thing. It's like, Slim, hey, Mike Stern, man. And he just talks and talks. And then I get on the phone with him, and it's just like, you're just like talking to your uncle or something. And he's just like this cool guy that just talks, but he has no concept of technology and stuff like that, though. And but it's one of those wild things. It's just like, freaking man, Mike Stern, man. And I'm just sitting there talking to Mike Stern.
That's great. Well,
yeah, he's the coolest guy in the world, man.
No, it's so cool. I'm so glad you did it. It's so nice to talk to you.
Hey, likewise. Thank you for having me on.
I love it. And man, it's been a joy. Be safe. Really appreciate it. Really dig both albums. A lot of fun.
I appreciate you having me on. It's a lot of fun to sit here and chat.
All right. Take care, Slim.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Slim Gambill, everybody. Really cool guy. And we before we did the interview part, we bonded over the Huskers. Well, bonded over how bad the Huskers are right now. I don't know. It's tough to be a Nebraska fan right now, but Slim's actually was born in Omaha, and I'm from Lincoln, so that was fun. Little connection. Really cool guy. Check out on the show links. I've got a link to his website. I've got a link to this 24 on 6 website where you can make a donation to Music Cares, watch it. It's so much fun. There's so many great players on that. I mean, it's just amazing. So that was a total joy. So that's going to do it for this episode of Trading Force. But hey, next time, I'm going 90s on you. That seems right since I have a 90s fan. I've got Chris McClernand. You may know him. Saigon Kick, Cold Sweat. Cool dude. So he's going to be on next. That should be up in a couple weeks. Look forward to that. So be safe, support live music virtually, and we'll talk real soon. Bye-bye.